If you have ever stayed with Pentax while everyone else moved toward Canon, Nikon, Sony, or mirrorless hype, you already understand something outsiders often miss. Pentax lenses are not always the loudest lenses in the market, but some of them quietly earn loyalty. These 4 lenses show why Pentax shooters still care, from compact telephoto reach to macro precision, limited rendering, and serious wildlife glass. Welcome to Alt Buzz Lenses. If this is your kind of channel, subscribe now because we are just getting started. At number 4, we have the ED Pentax-DA 55 to 300mm f4.5 to 6.3 ED PLM WR RE. That name is a mouthful. But what it represents is straightforward, practical telephoto reach for the everyday APS-C Pentax shooter who does not want to spend professional money just to get closer to the world. Think about what most APS-C Pentax users actually need. They are not always chasing birds at 300 meters or shooting motorsport from a professional pit lane. They are hiking with a Pentax KF or a K3 Mark III, and they want a lens that covers distance without adding a serious weight penalty to the bag. This lens is exactly that. It retracts when not in use, which makes it genuinely travel-friendly, and it carries weather resistance that matches the sealed bodies Pentax is known for. When the weather turns on a trail, this lens does not need to come off the camera. The PLM autofocus motor, that stands for pulse laser motor, is quieter and smoother than the older SDM units found in some Pentax telephoto lenses. For moving subjects at moderate distance, it keeps up well enough for casual wildlife and family sports moments. On an APS-C body, the 55 to 300mm range translates to an effective reach of roughly 84 to 460mm in full-frame terms. That is meaningful reach for a lens that fits in a standard camera bag compartment. Where it falls short is honest and worth saying clearly. The variable aperture, opening at f4.5 at the wide end and closing to f6.3 at 300mm, means this is not a low-light telephoto. Background separation is limited compared with a faster prime, and in fading evening light, you will feel the constraint. This is not the lens for a professional wildlife shooter who needs to isolate a subject against a smooth, creamy background in golden hour. But for the Pentax shooter who wants real telephoto range without carrying serious professional glass, this lens makes complete sense. It is the entry point into the longer end of K-mount, and it earns its place here because it serves more Pentax shooters than almost any other telephoto on the mount. At number 3, we have the ED Pentax-FA 31mm f1.8 limited. And this is where the list shifts tone entirely. Because this lens is not primarily about reach or practicality. This lens is about what Pentax means to the people who truly understand it. The limited series is one of the most quietly respected lines in camera lens history. Compact, precisely built, distinctively rendered. These lenses were never chasing the same goals as Zeiss or Leica, but among photographers who have spent serious time with them, they carry a similar kind of weight. The FA 31mm is the lens that most often gets mentioned first when Pentax users talk about what makes the system feel different. It is not just the focal length, it is the way the lens draws, the way the out-of-focus areas transition, the way color renders on both the K1 Mark II and on APS-C bodies, where it becomes a tighter, more intimate 47mm equivalent. For street photography, this lens has a natural quality that wider lenses sometimes lack. It gives you just enough distance from your subject to feel considered rather than intrusive. For travel, it balances well on compact Pentax bodies without the lens-heavy feeling of larger glass. For environmental portraits, the f1.8 aperture opens the lens up enough to separate a subject from a background in a way that feels organic rather than clinical. The rendering is what limited shooters buy into. Not the sharpness chart, not the distortion figure, but the overall look and feel of the image. The honest limitations are real though. This is an expensive lens by K-mount standards, and the autofocus experience is not what you would find on a modern mirrorless system with phase detect coverage across the frame. If you judge lenses primarily by lab measurements, the FA 31mm may leave you unconvinced. But if you have ever shot with a lens that made you want to go outside with a camera for no particular reason, you already understand what this lens represents. It is the Pentax limited identity in a single piece of glass, and in 2026, it still deserves every bit of the respect it has earned. If you enjoy lens stories that go beyond the hype cycle and actually explain why certain glass still matters to real photographers, subscribe to AltBuzz Lenses. This channel is about the lenses people use, respect, and remember, not just the newest names on every shelf. Hit subscribe and stay with us, because the next two lenses are where this list gets serious. At number 2, we have the ED Pentax-D FA Macro 100mm f2.8 ED AW. After the character of the FA31 Limited, this lens brings the list back to something more grounded, but no less impressive. This is practical glass, dependable glass. The kind of lens that earns respect not through personality, but through consistent, reliable performance across a wide range of shooting situations. Macro lenses solve a specific problem that no other category quite handles the same way. They let you get close, genuinely close, to subjects that most lenses render as background texture. A flower petal, the surface of an insect wing, fine fabric detail. Product surfaces for commercial work, document and artwork reproduction. At 1:1 magnification, the ED Pentax-D FA Macro 100mm opens up a version of the world that most photographers have never seriously explored. And because this lens is a DFA designation, meaning it covers the full-frame sensor of the Pentax K1 series as well as APS-C bodies, it is one of the more versatile single lenses in the K-mount lineup. The AW designation stands for all weather, and that matters for Pentax shooters who use this lens outdoors. Macro photography in nature, wildflowers, insects, ground-level textures benefits enormously from a lens that can handle moisture and dust without requiring careful environmental management. Pair it with a weather-sealed Pentax body, and you have a macro system that can work in conditions where careful, mirrorless users would be packing their bags. Portrait photographers also use this lens regularly, and that is worth mentioning. At 100mm, with a maximum aperture of f2.8, it produces background separation that serves traditional portrait work beautifully. The transition from in-focus to out-of-focus areas has a smoothness that comes partly from the macro optical design and partly from the focal length itself. This is not a single-use macro lens that spends most of its time in a bag. It is a lens that Pentax shooters reach for in multiple situations, and that kind of versatility is exactly why it sits at number 2 on this list. It is proof that Pentax still knows how to make genuinely useful premium glass. At number 1, we have the SMC Pentax-D 300mm f4 ED IF SDM. And this is the lens that changes the entire conversation. Because there is a version of Pentax that most people think of when the brand comes up. Compact bodies, limited primes, loyal DSLR shooters, a certain quietness in the market. That version is real. But it is not the complete picture. Pentax also made serious glass. Telephoto glass built for outdoor work, for wildlife, for the kind of photography that demands optical quality under difficult real-world conditions. The DA 300mm f4 is that lens. It is the lens that reminds you Pentax was not only playing in the character lens space, it was building professional-grade telephoto glass for photographers who needed it. The DA star designation carries specific meaning in the Pentax system. These are the lenses built to the highest internal standards, weather-sealed to match Pentax's most capable bodies, using optical designs that prioritize sharpness, color accuracy, and contrast in demanding shooting conditions. The 300mm f4 focal length and aperture combination is a classic wildlife and birding choice for a reason. It gives you meaningful reach with an aperture that holds up in reasonable outdoor light. And the internal focus design means the lens length stays constant during focus. A practical advantage when you are tracking a moving subject and need the balance of the camera to remain consistent. On an APS-C Pentax body, a K3 Mark III, for example, the 300mm becomes an effective 460mm in full-frame terms. For birding and wildlife photography, that reach is significant. It is the difference between a bird that fills a small portion of the frame and a bird that becomes a real photographic subject. Paired with the in-body shake reduction that Pentax DSLR bodies carry, the system becomes genuinely capable for handheld wildlife work in good light. The honest compromise is worth naming. The SDM autofocus supersonic drive motor has been a point of discussion among Pentax users for years. It is generally reliable for moderate speed subjects, but it is not the continuous tracking experience you would find on a current mirrorless system with subject recognition autofocus. Newer wildlife systems from Canon, Nikon, and Sony offer broader lens selections, faster tracking, and more advanced subject detection. If pure autofocus performance is the primary requirement, those systems win the technical comparison. But that is not the point this lens is making. The point is that Pentax built a 300mm f4 that weather seals, optically performs, and still makes sense for loyal Pentax wildlife shooters who have invested in K-mount bodies and do not need to start over. That is not a consolation prize. That is a real lens, doing a real job, for photographers who chose a system and intend to keep using it. This lens is the strongest argument on this entire list for why K-mount still has outdoor credibility, and that is exactly why it is number one. Pentax may not be the loudest name in 2026, but these four lenses still explain why photographers stay. Some for reach, some for character, some for precision, and one for pure outdoor soul. The right K-mount glass does not need to win every argument. It just needs to be right for the photographer holding it. If that kind of lens storytelling keeps you coming back, subscribe to Alt Buzz Lenses, and we will see you in the next one.